Okay, we're going to get started. A big warm welcome to the 2025 Tarawera Ultras by UTMB. My name is Dylan Bowman from the USA and Freetrail, joined by my trusty co-host, as always, Corinne Malcolm. Corinne, we are here, Beach Staz, Lakeside, in Rotorua. How you doing?
Doing great. So happy to have made the big journey. We're just at Black Canyon last weekend, and we said, "Oh, we got to do the double." So we made the trek, and I'm looking forward to next time already.
Corinne and I are both racing tomorrow. Also, the 50K. To our friends out here in the audience, who all is racing tomorrow? Show of hands. Heck yes. Can't wait to share that beautiful course with you guys. We also have Carrie Suter on stage here. Local legend, probably needs no introduction to most of the audience here. Carrie, how you doing, buddy?
So good to see you again, Debo. We love hosting. It's what we've always done here, and we open our homes up and we welcome everyone from near and far. We call this the Big Friendly for good reasons. So it's lovely to see you back for the third time, and great to hear you guys are going to get out on the trails and give it horns.
The Big Friendly. I love that.
Yeah, it's, trails full of heart. It's the way it's always been. The Ottawa, the Māori people here, we've hosted for over 150 years, and it's always been a special place for people to travel from around the world and check out, the connection that we have with the land here and with the history of the place. It's really special.
Amazing. Well, we're going to lean on you to tell us a little bit more about the history here in a second. Before we do that, a quick run of show and a big thank you first and foremost to our friends at HOKA, who always support our coverage of the Golden Ticket Chase, which we're going to talk about a bunch here. Of course, they are the primary sponsor of the UTMB World Series, and we're very grateful for HOKA supporting Freetrail's coverage as usual. If you missed it, we put up a bunch of interviews with some of the favorites in tomorrow's races, including local legends, Caitlin Fielder, Ruth Croft, Dan Jones, but also Hayden Hawks, Lottie Brinks. Who am I missing? Helen Mino Faulkner, etc. So make sure you go check out some of those interviews when you get a second. Again, we're going to talk about some of the history here today. We're going to send Carrie off, and then Corinne and I are going to go back and forth previewing some of the men's and women's fields, some of the favorites, and then maybe make our predictions before we sign off this afternoon. Corinne is going to be back here on the stage for the Women of Trail panel. Maybe say just a couple words about that.
Yeah, so I'll be up here at 2 p.m. with Allie, who I think many of you know super well, and then the great Lucy Bartholomew will be joining us, and we're going to talk a lot about kind of what we've seen change in the sport, what we hope to see change in the sport, and who we're going to be championing this weekend as well.
So stick around for that at 2 p.m. And finally, before we get to it, make sure you go play fantasy trail running. We always love to do that at Freetrail. Go to fantasy.freetrail.com, pick 5 deep for men and women for a chance to win some cool prizes from HOKA and Freetrail. That's going to be just in the 102K race. So go to fantasy.freetrail.com and play alongside us. Corinne and I are going to be providing our predictions here at the end of the show. Launching into it, Carrie Suter. Maybe first and foremost, you make your home here in Rotorua. You've always welcomed athletes over the many year history of Tarawera. Maybe just share a little bit about the history of the race. What makes it special to the local Kiwi trail running community?
Yeah, sure. I think in the late 2000s, Paul Charteris, the event creator and event director for many years, he wanted to connect the trails from Rotorua to Kawerau, and he thought he found a way and put it out there to the trail running community. Pretty small community at the time, and he looked at a map and sort of thought it was doable, and there wasn't a lot of ultra running in New Zealand and really not a lot in the world at the time. And I thought it would be a good idea to come down and have a try. It was about 85K. I think the 50 miler was a qualifier for Western States at the time, and that's what Paul wanted. And there was about 36 guys and maybe 34 women that showed up to give it a go in the first year. I was lucky enough to do just enough to get it done. And then I think the following year it was 100K. Similar sort of numbers, just a few dozen men and women came down to give it a go. And, at the time there was the sport was very small, the community was very strong, and there was a lot of volunteerism. We would come down and we'd sort of, clear the trails, rake the trails, mark the trails, till midnight and fall asleep on the couch in Paul Charteris's place, get up a few hours later to try and host the start line and, hopefully put your toes on it and run a bit as well. And, the sport, it really grew from that. We planted a good seed in fertile soil and we watered the garden and it grew, and it's what you'd expect. And we invited people to come from around the world and, drink from the cup, taste a bit of it. And, everyone fell in love with it, and it grew how it should when you surround something with love.
Maybe just speak about that evolution quickly. And just to put a finer point on it, Kerry didn't fully admit or reveal or brag about the fact that you are, in fact, the inaugural champion of the Tarawera Ultramarathon. Big round of applause for Kerry Suter here. And now here we are. It's a by UTMB event. The finish line is now here right in the heart of Rotorua, right next to the lake. It feels like, obviously this is one of the premier races in the world, let alone the Australasian region. Just talk about the evolution over time.
Like I say, it's always been sort of, we call it the big friendly. In Australasia, it's a gathering of, the trail community. We get together and we look after one another and we celebrate trail running, enjoy each other's company. And that it didn't take long for that to spread. The US fixed their eyes on it. We had athletes showing up from the States and across Europe. Help me out, Debo. Obviously you've won it a couple of times as well. But Jonas Bud has been here. Jim Wormsley's been here. Emily Forsberg, Tom Evans. Keep going. Let's go.
I was going to say, we can just, Ruby Muir was initial. We saw Ruth make her career here in a lot of ways. And that's kind of Hayden Hawks, I think.
Yeah, Courtney's been here. It's always been mega and it's always been competitive, but I think behind it all has always been that, love and respect that we have for one another. So, that continues to shine through even in the modern era of, incredible competitiveness and professionalism in the sport. I think we'll always have that undercurrent of, love and support, which, which will continue to be here.
Yeah, what I think is really cool is that you have folks on the line this week like Dan Jones, where it's the start of the 100K isn't far from where he grew up. You've got Caitlin Fielder, who's born and raised here in Rotorua. They are both now, the elites of the elite in the sport. And I have to imagine it's pretty cool to have seen both this event grow to the point where you've got people coming from all over the world to run it. And you still have these amazing locals who are now also at the top of the sport opening their season here.
Yeah, Kiwis can fly. There's no question. We've always been a competitive nation when it comes to running and track and marathon distance. So Rod Dixon winning the New York Marathon, and Arthur Lydiard with everything that he did for jogging and running, and 60, 70 years ago. So the competitive nature of Kiwis in running has always been really strong, and I think just quietly we're going to deal to you guys again this weekend.
Okay, you're already making your predictions here.
Yeah, go the home team.
Kiwi's going to take everybody else to the woodshed. You heard that here first from Kerry Suter. You just mentioned Paul Charteris, the original race director. Corinne and I were both at the race director's barbecue last night. Say a few words about Paul and Tim specifically. I talked to Tim the other day. We finally got a chance to catch up after many years. I understand he's going to be running the miler. So, this is sort of part of the conversation about evolution. Shine a light on those two important characters in Tarawera history.
Yeah, well, they always just used to open their doors to everyone. It's the same with everyone in New Zealand, where we're a very friendly nation to begin with, and trail runners is sort of apex of friendliness, and then you bring it down to this sort of micro level that, Paul and Tim, they just wanted to share everything with everyone, and, they'd put an endless number of hours, they'd put all of their energy into, trying to host this thing to make it the best possible weekend for everyone, and, that continues on now. Paul Charteris has just got this absolutely manic love for the sport, and, Tim Day fell in love with it and, wove himself into the event such that he was the event director for many years as well, and was in charge of organising the course for a long time as well. So it's really special for Tim to be able to get out and run the 100 miles, because he's never really had the opportunity. He and I managed to do the 100 miles a couple of weeks before the course, before we hosted the race a few years ago. So Tim and I have done 100 miles, but he's never been to be able, really be on the start line and in the same capacity. So I think he's really just looking forward to spending sort of, 20 something hours with everyone out there and having a laugh and enjoying the trails that he's, mapped out and marked 1,000 times.
A fun personal story for me as it relates to Tim. In 2015, the first time I came here 10 years ago now, it's hard to believe, I was running in the lead in the final miles of the race, and Tim was so nervous that I was going to get off course. he was running barefoot next to me, as he is known to do, for like 5 miles through the woods near the end of the race in 2015. And it's going to be great to see him step to the start line in the miler. I've already asked him to maybe join our show on Sunday to share a little bit about his experience out there. And speaking of which, I'd love for you to share a little bit more about your experience, Carrie. I think it was about 3 years ago. You went for a mountain bike ride. Ultimately, it was a day that changed your life. Tell us a little bit about that day and, how things have progressed.
Yeah, for those listening, I pretty much bookended athleticism. I went from running a bit and the world being, my playground. But about 3 years ago, I went out for a mountain bike ride with one of the 102K champions, Reese Johnston, and another mate. And we were just mucking around in the forest. I dropped off something that's about 5 foot high on my mountain bike and went over the handlebars, broke my C5 vertebrae in my neck, and really tested the limits of socialised healthcare in this country. And I'm now a tetraplegic, so kind of have no sensation from about my armpits down. My arms kind of move a bit, but my hands don't. So I'm in a wheelchair now, and I don't get to run as much, but I still get to help people. So I'm very lucky that as a coach I can continue sort of doing what I love doing most of all, and that is being part of other people's running journey. I think at some point as an athlete you like to turn your attention to enjoying other people's achievements more than your own selfish achievements. So that really became my purpose 3 years ago after that accident, and I'm still very lucky that I get to help host and be part of this thing.
It's a beautiful sentiment, sort of adjusting to a new reality and making service sort of the center of your life. Maybe share a little bit more about how you do that specifically. Obviously, the squad run tent is right over there, so shout out that community and just what value it brings to your life, especially adjusting to this new reality.
Yeah, we've been professional coaches, Ali and I, for just over a decade now, and it's all that we do. We wake up every day, we coach all day, and we go to bed tired coaches. So, we put it out there for a few hundred athletes that we look after, and we've the specialists in this event and Ultra Trail Australia and Ultra Trail Kosciuszko and Aussie as well. So we bounce between the countries and try and help as many people as we can. And I think that's how often it is. If you've got the opportunity to help other people, you'll always choose that. And it's just about sharing the stoke and helping everyone else enjoy their Tarawera or their Ultra Trail Australia, and seeing what other people can achieve and be there for them on the finish line, and seeing what it means to them.
Maybe say a few words about Ali also. She's going to be co-hosting the panel with Corinne and Lucy here later this afternoon, and I know she's a big part of the squad run community and part of the trail running community here in New Zealand also. Yeah,
what a special person. I'm just super blessed to have Ali as a partner. She does so much for women in trail running. She's really been pioneering a lot of the initiatives that we've had in Australasia. Australia and New Zealand, I think we need to take our hats off to what we do for women in trail running. Our numbers are some of the highest in the world in terms of representation. So, this weekend's almost a 50-50 split, and we've sort of continued that spirit for the last 15 years of trail running in Australasia, and long may it continue, but we just need to keep raising the roof and making sure that we roll out the carpet for the women and we keep welcoming them into the sport. And it's something that Ali's just super passionate about. She's an incredibly intelligent person and a great coach, a wonderful human being. And if you ever get the opportunity to chat to her and talk to her about your trail running, that she'll put it all out there for you and try and make you the center of the thing.
So beautiful. And I think a lot of people would say the same thing about you, Carrie. Your spirit is always just front and center. As long as I've known you, you've just always carried such a love, and just that sentiment of service, I think, is obvious to those of us who know you. So congratulations for all that you guys have achieved as a community in building this race. I know you've been an instrumental part of that, and we appreciate you joining us here on stage here this morning.
Thanks, Corinne. Thanks, Debo. Thanks, everyone at Freetrail. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being part of the trail running community. I know that for many people, New Zealand is that place they've always wanted to go and check out. And hey, February is a good time to come and do it. So if not this year, maybe next year, we'd love to welcome some more of our North American brothers and sisters.
Yeah,
over.
well, Ryan, Corinne, and I have already been contemplating making this an annual pilgrimage for the Freetrail crew. So, and we'll bring our North American friends with us. Big round of applause for Carrie Suter, everybody.
Perfect.
Okay, we are back. Corinne, what'd you think about that?
I mean, I love the big friendly. I'm stealing that for forever, but I do think it speaks to what this event is and was and has become for so many people. And like you mentioned, I think we're going to make this an annual journey for us.
Yeah. All right, so launching into our preview of the 102K that takes place starting at 7 a.m. tomorrow. Corinne, officially 64-ish miles with 7,500 feet of climbing, 6,500 feet of descending. So it is a net uphill course as opposed to Black Canyon, which was a net downhill course last weekend. I know you haven't spent a lot of time on the trails, but maybe just previewing it for our audience here. Like if you were approaching this race in the 102-kilometer race, how would you be thinking about it competitively?
I mean, everything I've heard in a big way is that, that first marathon effectively goes out really, really fast, really, really hard. You've got some relatively flat running throughout that section. Obviously, you've got a little bit of a gradual climb in there, but for the front of the pack in particular, right? It's going to be, I was talking to some athletes yesterday, if the pack's going, you got to go with. If someone takes a flyer off the front, maybe you decide to let that one person go. But I think with golden tickets on the line for the elites, you got to go with the pack if they make a move early, and then hope that you have something to give on the climb, but a very runnable climb, kind of through that 85K mark.
Yep, absolutely. So officially the course records are 7:27 by Daniel Jones 2 years ago in 2023, though on a different course. We spoke to Dan yesterday. He was predicting it would be about 7 hours and 50-minute race for the men tomorrow. We'll see how accurate his prediction is as it relates to that. Ruth Croft's time from last year is, I think, thought to be the standard 9 hours, 14 minutes. Both those athletes are stepping back to the start line. We're going to talk about them here in a little bit. But one of the stories in trail running is that course records and the standards continue to get lower, continue to get more and more impressive. We saw it last weekend, both Seth Ruling and Riley Brady breaking the course records at Black Canyon. Maybe, Corinne, you can use that as an example of just like where trail running is now, especially with the professional ranks.
I mean, I think at the very pointy end of this sport, right, we've got a larger and larger investment in athletes kind of going all in. We've got a lot of full-time athletes who might have a side hustle, but a lot that, they're not blue collar runners, so to speak. Running is the thing that they do. You add that with good coaching, great shoes, dialing in the beverages consumed and the carbohydrates ingested out there, and all of a sudden it's not just a battle of attrition. We're seeing less and less blow-ups, which means that you've got several athletes still duking it out deep into the race, and that's also accelerating, pushing everyone forward.
Talking a little bit about the dynamic here, I think Tarawera is going to be similar to what we saw at Black Canyon last weekend and similar to what we saw at Black Canyon last year, where it's the type of course that's conducive to very dramatic and tight racing at the front. Maybe say a little bit about that or how you're thinking about the potential dynamics in the professional ranks.
I mean, the dynamics in the professional ranks is also different because we have historic champions in the field that also don't need or don't want a golden ticket. Dan Jones is already in. Ruth Croft is on the record as not wanting to take a ticket to go back to states this year. UTMB and some other things are the focus of the season. And so you've got front runners in this race who have nothing to lose and might not care about playing it safe at all. And then I think you've got a field behind both of them that are relatively evenly matched. I think every single athlete in the kind of previewed fields deserves to be there, can very much be in the mix. And so it's not like, oh, we anticipate someone from that golden ticket chase really being out there by themselves. And I do think that's going to play into us seeing some pack dynamics.
Yeah, so when we put this up on YouTube, Ryan's going to splice in a graphic of what the course actually looks like and what the profile actually looks like. So before we start previewing some of the professional athletes in the race tomorrow, I just want to add some sort of personal color to what our viewers are going to be looking at now. Obviously, Tarawera, for those who've never been here, it's a rolling hill type environment. There's no massive climbs like you would find on a UTMB course or a hard rock course, for example. So that's what I was mentioning about how those types of courses typically keep packs together longer, which makes for very exciting racing. As I look at the course profile, I think it's sort of like between miles 25 and 40, where the crux of the racing is going to be happening. So I guess that's roughly kilometers 40 to 60, if I'm getting that conversion accurate. We've got a 7-mile climb that only gains 1,500 feet of vertical, but you're thinking about grinding it out for 50 minutes at that point, probably for the leaders. Short downhill, then another big climb out of Okataina before you drop down to Blue Lake there. So thinking about that sort of as the crux of the race where separation might happen. I don't know if that's anything you want to add to.
No, I mean, I think the big thing is that you can still make mistakes. Like, we're all prone to doing it. The pros make mistakes just like the rest of us, I would say, in which it's really easy to maybe not leave an aid station with enough hydration on you, to think that one bottle is going to suffice, to miscalculate the calories that you're leaving an aid with. We now know that, the mandatory gear list changed for the 50K and the 100K, in which, you don't need to carry as much stuff. So are you cutting weight? Are you not taking a pack because all of a sudden you can get away with a handheld? Cutting corners can lead to some late race blow-ups, rather. Ruth Croft's post about her first foray at this event 10 years ago, where had an absolutely outstanding run until about the final aid station, and nothing anyone could do was going to get her to go from a walk to a run to make it back here to the finish line. And I think that we're seeing less of that nowadays in the pro field, but it's still very possible.
Before we move off the course, I'd love to have you also comment on the timing of the year. Of course, we were both at Black Canyon last year, which was sort of the unofficial kickoff of at least of our work together here in 2025. Here we are a week later in New Zealand, and it feels to me like Tarawera is like, it's placed at the perfect moment on the calendar for this type of event. The trails are forgiving. It's not overwhelming in terms of its technicality or the concentration of vertical climbing and descending. So it feels like a good time for the professionals to see where their fitness is at, practice race skills, and just sort of get their first race under their belt, even with these golden ticket implications as we look ahead towards 2025.
Yeah, and looking at the field in this too, you've got a number of Southern Hemisphere folks who maybe they did a 50K in the early part of their summer season, because it's the temperatures are different at home. I don't know if anyone's aware, but it's below freezing for most of us in the Northern Hemisphere right now, and it is definitely summer. But I do think that it's placed well in the sense that you're right. You're not, the folks that are coming from like we got Lottie Brinks from Boise, Idaho, right, or someone coming, Hillary Allen in the 100-mile coming out of Colorado, right. It doesn't matter that the peaks are snowed in there and they're not running vert, because this is a running race. And so those athletes have been putting in running miles, running kilometers. Their long runs are taking a lot less time because they're doing a lot of road running, for example. And so it is kind of nice that it does fit into both it being peak summer here, and also the athletes coming in from the Northern Hemisphere aren't, I think, handicapped as much because they haven't been hanging out in the mountains. They've been running fast, runnable stuff. Yeah,
well said. So speaking about the fact that it is peak summer here, let's just talk about the conditions expected tomorrow and how that might impact the professional ranks. It looks like a high of about 72 degrees Fahrenheit tomorrow. Ryan, what does that convert to Celsius? 21 degrees Celsius. Look at this guy, mathematical wizard. So it's going to be nice, sort of, I think, partly cloudy, kind of like it is here today, a low of 57-ish in the morning. Talk about how that impacts the race.
Yeah, again, it's quote unquote not that hot, but if anyone is sitting in the sun right now, I bet you're sweating, right? So the sun is warm. We've got some clouds. We talked about that last week at Black Canyon as well in the desert. The sun is hot. The ambient air temperature might not be that warm. It's also wet here. The humidity is definitely makes cooling a little bit more challenging for everyone, not just the pros, right? It's when you don't have a place for the evaporative cooling to go, it's a little bit harder to cool down out there. So take care of yourself in the middle of the day. But I do think that it's going to allow the pros in particular to blitz the first marathon pretty quickly. It's going to be ideal temps before they kind of get into the meat and potatoes of their day.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start talking about some of the characters in the field tomorrow, starting with the women. And who else could we start with but the Queen of New Zealand, Ruth Croft, a two-time champion here at the Tarawera 102K, coming off an insane season last year. Ruth has been literally one of the best our sport has ever seen, one of the most consistent high performers across distances and terrain in her illustrious career. Comment on Ruth.
Yeah, I mean, I think that she loves kicking off her season here. She's run it a number of times. She's a multi-time champion. She had a great 2024, and I do think, is really smart when it comes to racing. She's not someone that over races. She knows when to call her season done, and she ran probably, I mean, I know that she didn't beat Katie Scheid at UTMB, but she ran the best splits in the back half of that race that has ever been run by anyone. Better than Courtney, better than Katie, better than any woman that's come before her on that course. And so Ruth Croft is going to win UTMB at some point in time. It wasn't this past year, but she's setting up a really, really strong 2025.
Yeah, so just for our viewers here, of course, Ruth won here last year at Tarawera. She then won and broke the course record at Transvolcania in May of 2024 before finishing second behind Katie Scheid at UTMB. You missed that interview with Ruth yesterday, but as you just mentioned, Ruth is explicitly not here to chase a golden ticket. How does that impact the women's race, do you think?
I mean, I think she's the runner that probably, if there was no golden tickets on the line, would be the one with the bullseye on her back, right? You know, very much her race to lose. She's not here. She's not listening to this. It's fine. It's very much her race to lose in that sense, coming in as the favorite. I do think that it being a golden ticket race, though, does change that dynamic a little bit, because women can say, you know what, I don't care what Ruth is doing because she's not taking this thing, and I am here for a golden ticket. I want the golden ticket. That doesn't, they want to win too. The women, I want to say every woman in this race wants to win as well, but they are having to think a little bit about like, hey, I've got to defend this ticket that I'm going for. There's only 2 available. It can only roll down to 5th. There's some other women who might be a little bit borderline with the ticket, but I do think that Ruth becomes kind of a factor and a non-factor in that way, where it's like the other women do have to think about this thing that they are trying to secure.
Yeah. Yeah, super interesting. And of course, we don't need to, gas up Ruth to the local audience here in New Zealand, but it's always a privilege to watch Ruth race. And I'm very excited personally to see her back here at Tarawera opening up her 2025 season. Can't go past also the pride of Rotorua. We learned yesterday Caitlin Fielder is actually from here, grew up here in Rotorua, and it seems like this is an interesting transition moment in her career. We talked to her yesterday. Say a few words about Caitlin.
Yeah, I mean, I think if anyone's been at Tarawera before, they've probably seen Caitlin Fielder blitz the 50K, multi-time champion at that distance. But again, like I knew that she was a Kiwi. I had no idea that she was born and raised here in Rotorua. And so she's going to have family out there. I know she's almost got emotional in our interview about her niece and nephew are going to be out there on the course cheering her on. So I think there's a special quality to what she'll get to experience out there, really racing on her home turf and her home trails. But had a great season. She's had some hit and miss performances at the 100K. She's really, really solid 50K runner. Had a great Templier, though, at the end of the season, which is an 80K race. And I do think that's good momentum coming into the 100K here. That's a good confidence booster, knowing that she showed up in a really, really good women's field, one of the better fields at Templier, I think, in recent years, and came away with that win. So good momentum coming in. Also new sponsorship with Adidas Terex. They've got a whole crew here, and lining up with teammates and fellow Kiwis has to feel pretty special. Yeah,
new sponsorship for Caitlin Fielder. And as she said to us yesterday, it would be very hard for her to say no to a ticket, which I interpret is, yes, she would come race Western States, which I know Corinne and I would both very much be excited to see. Caitlin Fielder certainly among the favorites tomorrow. Let's talk about the trifecta of Americans that we spoke to yesterday. Or I guess we only spoke to 2 out of the 3 of them. We've got Anna Loudon, we've got Lottie Brinks, we've got Helena Faulkner. One thing that's interesting about all 3, they've all secured golden tickets in their career. Helena Faulkner declined hers, but all 3 have that experience.
Yeah, they've all been in that position. They've all run well enough to be either in that podium or kind of in that top 5 crew that does get to claim them. And we do know that Anna Loudon and Lottie Brinks are here very much on the hunt for that. To kind of put a note on Anna Loudon, she has now the fastest ever 11th place finish at Western States, which is a pretty painful place to be. The top 10 automatically get to come back next year. And she ran a phenomenal race, but just was not quite good enough to get that auto bid. So I'm really excited that she made the trip here. She has been on the US 100K Road World Championship team. So she's got the legs and she's really, really fast. We were talking to Lottie Brinks yesterday about how we think of her not so much as a mountain runner, but as that kind of fast 100K runner. So the American women who have made the journey over here to toe the line for a golden ticket are all, I mean, they're all fast. The whole field is fast. But
it feels to me like they're all at a
speedy.
similar moment in their careers too. which to me is kind of exciting.
Yeah, they're all kind of early in pro contracts. They're all ascendant, which is very exciting. And so I do think that you got that travel budget. You might as well take a trip to New Zealand.
Yeah, and it's important to just gain that experience sort of at this moment in their professional racing careers, to be able to come here to New Zealand to race internationally against the likes of people like Ruth Croft and Caitlin Fielder, who have been at the top of the sport for many years. Is a great opportunity for them to gain experience and potentially have an international breakout performance, which is important for every professional athlete.
Yeah, and then I also want to say notably absent on kind of the highlighted preview of women is Lin Chen. Lin Chen raced at Black Canyon last weekend and finished 4th, securing a golden ticket back to Western States. So that is a notable absence from the Chinese field here today. She is the one athlete who could probably pull the double and run 100Ks on back-to-back weekends really well, but she made that trip to Black Canyon and got it done there. So just that is a notable absence on this list.
Yeah, well said. A couple other interesting characters here. Corinne, say whatever you want about any of these, but I think Beth McKenzie is definitely an interesting person to watch. 2nd place last year behind Ruth Croft, a former professional triathlete. She's an American, but has made her home in Australia for the last decade plus. And, here now competing at the top of the trail running sport, similar to Heather Jackson, we've seen a lot of these multi-sport athletes taking their lifetime of competition and fitness here into a new sport. You can comment on Beth, and maybe we'll mention a couple more before we move to the men.
Yeah, I mean, I was super impressed with her UTA last year as well. I think she just put together a phenomenal race. I think she runs incredibly well in the heat. And although, again, the ambient air temperature is not going to be that hot, any of the exposed sections of course are going to feel pretty comfy for her. I also wanted to touch on Anna McKenna. Is a gal who's come up just short on tickets more times than anyone wants to count. She's been on the chase the last 2 years and has finished, 4th, 5th, 4th, back and forth and not quite in that golden ticket spot. It didn't quite roll down to her. It almost did at Canyons last year, maybe, when Kareth Arnold took the ticket. The next person who would roll to, I think, was either Aroa or Anna McKenna. So she's just been putting herself in that position, and the hunt, when you're hunting for that golden ticket, you're hungry for it. I also obviously need to give props to Lucy Bartholomew, who has been ascendant since a teenager. So I don't know if we get to continue to call her ascendant, but she's at the top of the sport, right? She put together a phenomenal UTMB this year, PRing by over 90 minutes, and still, I think she was like, I didn't even move up a place, but I PR'd. I PR'd by 90 minutes between the last 2 years.
I talked to her about that last night at the race director's barbecue, and she said, my time would have gotten me 3rd like any other year at UTMB. Again, it's representative of the place the sport is at internationally now.
Yeah, but she had a great run at GPT before it was canceled early due to extreme weather, was running in the top couple overall in the race. She's a fighter. She's a gamer. She's going to put herself in the mix, and I do think, and she's done really well here at the Miler, for example. She's been at UTA year over year, so I do think that this, in a lot of ways, it's not home turf technically for Lucy, but it's not far off of it, and I do think that is always really special as well.
Super experienced, we should say too. And
when you've been racing ultra since you're like 14, right? You're pretty experienced.
She told me yesterday. She's like, "Yeah, I'm 28 now." I was like, "Gosh, you're still only 28. That's incredible." I feel like I've known you for so many years, but of course, it was because I met her when she was about 18 years old. So shout out to Lucy Bartholomew, always a fan favorite. Anybody else you want to mention on the women's side before we move to the men?
I think that covers, most of this field. I do know that there are going to be people that surprise us, particularly coming out of Australia and New Zealand, just folks that we have not gotten to see race maybe quite as much on the Western European scene, for example, or coming over to North America. And so I do think that kind of, I guess Nancy Zheng, she's won here before, hasn't she?
I think she's either won or been second, but
I'm looking to Devin and Ruth. Give me a thumbs up. Has Nancy won here? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So we have 2 champions in the women's field tomorrow. Okay. So Nancy, this is kind of home turf for her.
We're supposed to be the experts, and we're soliciting information from the crowd, but we pretend.
They know the field pretty well. So, but yeah. So it'd be remiss to not mention a former champion in that field has run exceptionally well here before I anticipate we'll see her in the mix.
Yeah. Okay, great. So point being, there are a lot of fast women taking the start line in the 102K, battling it out for those golden tickets to Western States. Moving to the men and starting with the 2-time defending champion like Patrick Mahomes going for the three-peat this weekend, Mr. Daniel Jones. The dude seems extraordinarily fit, according to his training partner, Hayden Hawks.
Yeah, we've been told that he is really fit, and he got a haircut recently, and so I think he's raring to go. He's like, the fade is in, I'm good. And he's also, I think, for the first time, he signed his contract with Adidas Terrex shortly after his win here last year. So back, I think, in a big way, going for a three-peat, but representing in a lot of ways a big change in his career last year. He's been on the up and up for the last 2 seasons. I think, finishing 4th at Western States and 4th at CCC last year were big deals for Dan Jones. And I think getting to do that, again, he mentioned that the start of the course runs something like 20K from his house, so like where he grew up, basically, not where he currently lives. But, I think there's a lot of like sentimentality for him as well. He doesn't need a golden ticket. He's already in Western States, and I think he's dangerous for this men's field.
Yeah, we asked him yesterday, the fact that you don't need a golden ticket, you could approach it in one of 2 ways. You could either put pressure on the field early and string things out and make people run your race, or you could play it conservatively and try and kick it in for the win. He wouldn't reveal his racing strategy to us, but suffices to say, Dan Jones will be off the front. Like Corinne said, 4th at Western States last year, where he ran 14:32. Again, a time that would win that race almost every single year. But I think you and I, Corinne, would view Dan Jones more as like a 50K, 100K runner. I think one of the performances that impressed us maybe as much or more as those CCC and Western States last year was his second place performance behind Eli at the Canyons 50K. Dan's got range, and this is his type of course.
And that was a tune-up for Western States.
Right.
He wasn't even at his full power in a lot of ways. And to see those guys really get after it in the 50K with, again, some of the best 50K runners in North America was incredibly impressive.
We were also admiring Dan's Strava account yesterday. If you haven't looked at it, that dude's got wheels, throwing up 130-mile weeks. Ryan, what is that in kilometers? It's like 100, 200 Ks a week, something like that. Anyway,
210.
He's fast, he's fit, he's been putting in the work. And actually, Hayden said that when Hayden arrived here and started training with Dan, that Dan was putting the hurting on Hayden. And if you can put the hurting on Hayden, you can put the hurting on anybody. Final word for me on Dan before we can move on. It feels to me like he's like on that precipice of like launching into that category of athletes with Hayden. Like you and I know he can run with Hayden, but globally in terms of like the recognition from fans of trail running, it feels to me like Dan Jones, like we know he can run with anybody.
He's not an underdog.
Right. But he's got everything it takes to be like, one of those world famous, like transcendent global athletes, I think.
Yeah, I don't think there's enough respect on his name. That's kind of how I'd phrase it.
Dan Jones, home turf here this weekend. Some other characters. Maybe go to Thibaut Baronia next.
Yeah, I feel like Thibaut's an interesting character in this field. I feel like, he's definitely had some success stepping up to that 100K distance. He survived UTMB last year when so many men in that race did not. I think that's a fair categorization of what happened out there. And didn't have a great day. Finished in like 22 hours and change, which is still quite fast, making your way around the UTMB course. But, has kind of like taken his lickings a little bit, and I think that also it changes a runner a little bit. He's had a lot of swings that have gone almost great, but maybe not quite where I think he's capable of. And I'm really curious to see how he runs on what is a much faster course than where I think we see him thrive at, races like Transvolcania, UTCT, UTMB, CCC, these more, mountain forward races, rockier races. So I'm really curious actually to see how Thibaut does. I'm sure he's fit. The dude trains really, really hard. I mean, all these guys do, but I haven't seen him in, I feel like, a race like this before. And I do think he's a character to watch out for. And I do think he'd take a golden ticket.
Yeah, absolutely. And you sort of took the words out of my mouth there. And I always think of the French athletes as mountain athletes. They have been dominant at UTMB for such a long time. So this does feel like Thibaut coming out of his natural environment to take a swing at this 100K, but it seems like he's been here in New Zealand for at least a couple of weeks, sort of scouting the scene and getting used to this time zone, this part of the world. And he does operate like this new generations of hyper-professional athletes. And it'll be great to see Thibaut here. Also feeling like Caitlin Fielder at a moment of transition in his career. Like you said, he's done CCC, been on the podium there. He did UTMB last year. And it feels like it's taken him a minute coming out of the Golden Trail World Series focus, which he did for a while, to sort of adjust to these longer distance races. He's been a little bit more hot and cold, but has all the tools to win or be in that golden ticket conversation tomorrow.
Yeah, 100%. And I do think, again, it'll be really curious to see how it packs up early, because I do think that there'll be some guys willing to take a a flyer off the front, either local boys who know the course really well and are ready to rip, or, I was looking at kind of down the list a little bit, and you have, Hu Zhao from China. And I do think that the Chinese athletes race aggressive from the gun is something I love it. I love to see it. And I do think that, again, if we're going to see someone take a flyer off the front who does want a golden ticket, who's going to be in that golden ticket chase, it could be the Chinese athlete going off the front early.
And another one of our Asian athletes who I want to give a special shout out to, who will be off the front or in that lead pack early, is Hiroki Kai from Japan. I met him 2 years ago when I went over to the Mount Fuji 100. We both ran the shorter distance race. He's a famous YouTuber in Japan, sort of getting his feet under him here on international racing a little bit more. He told me yesterday, I really want a golden ticket to Western States.
That's exciting.
And the funny thing about Hiroki Kai is he will be running with like a GoPro strapped to his head the whole race. You got to look up his YouTube channel. It's absolutely hilarious of him just like grunting and sprinting his way through the trail races of Japan, now here in New Zealand. A really fun character for our audience to pay attention to.
Yeah, could not agree more. I want to touch on Adrian McDonald. We're just naming names at this point, but that's what we're here for. Adrian McDonald has won the 100-mile here. He's done really well at Leadville. He's really good at those fast runnable 100-mile races. It's I think that seeing him in Western States would be a real treat for many of us. But I was actually really excited to see him, quote unquote, step down to the 100K distance here, which in my mind means, hey, it's a golden ticket. I'm on the golden ticket hunt. So Adrian's a guy who knows how to run here, who's run really, really well in both New Zealand and Australia at these kind of fast 100-mile distances. And he's not someone that I'd take my eyes off of. Totally. He was in that group early at Leadville when David ultimately pulled away to run that phenomenal record-setting time. But
he's a 2-time Leadville champ too.
Yeah, so I mean, the dude knows how to win, and he knows how to run really, really freaking fast. And so I think him stepping down into the 100K here, he shouldn't be a dark horse, but I do feel like he's bringing in dark horse energy, and yet he's done so well here and so well in Australia that it's kind of hard to actually picture him in that dark horse category.
Yeah, I think he's ranked by UTMB Index as like 3rd or 4th in the field, but he's not super active on the internet. But yeah, so as you said, Corinne, sort of by virtue of that comes in a little bit more of a dark horse or a little bit more under the radar than guys like Dan Jones or Thibaut Baroni and other Americans in the field. Ryan Montgomery has experience with golden tickets. Your athlete, Gabriel Klein, comments on those two?
Yeah, I mean, I think I got to see Ryan last night at dinner, and the guy wants a golden ticket. He's here to put on a good show. He's here to run really, really fast. Again, someone who's run Javelina well every single year, for example, knows how to run these fast ripping courses. Ryan's going to put himself in the mix. Gabe Klein, got to see him yesterday. He's been on the ground for about a week, and again, he is probably the dark horse of the field. He's, of the Mackay Clemens group training out of San Diego really, really fast, but him nailing it on this stage would be kind of like we got to take a second look at this guy, and they're all fit enough to be in the mix is the thing. And I'm really anticipating some pack running. You and I are going to finish the 50K and like immediately pull up the live timing because we're going to be flying in the dark.
I'm hoping somebody will give me a ride to Tiki Tapu so I can see the leaders coming through there at the Blue Lake aid station.
Yeah, we'll just quick flip it around and get back out.
We didn't mention Cody Lind. We got to give a shout out to Cody Lind here too. I bumped into him yesterday at the RD barbecue. I think he was a late addition to the field as part of the Adidas Terex activation here. And he's always like a steady Eddie guy, never makes major mistakes, always in the mix.
Yeah, he said he hadn't anticipated coming here like right away. So maybe like he's kind of curious to see where his fitness is sitting, I think, more than anything. But again, consummate professional. He's not going to be one of those guys who makes an aid station mistake, right? So he's one, if anyone has fallen apart in particular, Cody's going to be there for cleanup.
All right, folks. Any other final words on the men's race before we move to the predictions?
No, I mean, I just think that it is very likely that we are going to see guys out of Australia, other guys out of New Zealand who are very much in the mix early or are surprise people to us anyway.
Totally.
In the later stages of the race, so don't quote us maybe on...
Sort of like our guy Will Murray last week at Black Canyon. Came out of nowhere, finished second place in a huge 100K race.
We want to make new names, so we're hoping we get some this weekend as well.
Yeah, and we're relying on you guys to share some names from the local Kiwi Trail community, some of those dark horses. Make sure you go play fantasy. Perfect transition here, Corinne. The moment of truth. Let's make our predictions here on stage. You want me to go first?
Yeah.
Okay. Predictions here. Again, I always like tempt myself to pick upsets. And then I'm like, no, I can't pick an upset. I got to pick Ruth Croft to win. Of course, this is her 4th time at the 100K. She's a 2-time champ. So going for 3 wins here. She's been one of the greatest of all time. Can't look past Ruth. I've got Caitlin Fielder, the other Kiwi, in 2nd. 3rd place, Helena Faulkner.
You're just going down the list.
Well, I was going to do my golden tickets, right?
You're like UTMB index.
So Ruth
1,
is
2,
explicitly
3.
not taking the golden ticket. So my prediction is Caitlin Fielder, Helena Faulkner do take the tickets in 2nd and 3rd. If Helen declines, I have it bump into Anna Loudon in 4th.
Okay. I won't say that you're wrong, but I don't know that you're going to be right. No, I think that those are very good picks. Again, I do think that it's hard for me to count out the gamer in Lottie Brinks. It's hard for me to count out the 100K road speed in Anna Loudon. Has been over here training. I do think that we're going to have a tight battle in that kind of 2 through 5th position. So I'm gonna give my tickets, let's say. So Helen's like she's told us that she'd hold the ticket, but might not take the ticket. So my tickets, I'm gonna bump to the Americans because I'm biased, and I'm biased towards everyone. You'll find out. To Lottie and to Anna.
Okay, so do you have Ruth winning?
Yeah.
Okay, and then Lottie, Anna, or Ruth, Helen, and then Lottie, Anna, and the ticket bumps. Okay.
Yeah.
Good picks.
That was very vague. So you guys
I did
can
put Nancy
interpret that.
Zhang in 5th too just in case it rolls 5 deep.
It could roll 5 deep. Someone
Okay.
could decide tomorrow they don't want to run 100 mile again.
Moving to the men here. Again, couldn't pick an upset. Dan Jones going for the 3-peat. Got the Patrick Mahomes haircut. Patrick was not able to secure the 3-peat for the Kansas City Chiefs, for those who follow the National Football League from North America. But I think Dan Jones, with that Patrick Mahomes haircut, will secure the 3-peat. I've got Tebow Baronian in 2nd, Ryan Montgomery in 3rd. Tebow, Ryan, take the tickets.
Okay, so I'll play a game on that one. I've got Dan Jones. It's really hard to vote against New Zealand's own Dan Jones taking the win tomorrow. Everyone's like, those aren't hot takes, Corinne. This is like you're reading the UTMB index verbatim to us. But I do think kind of in that mix again for the golden ticket behind Dan Jones, I'm playing my bias card, and I'm going to put Ryan Montgomery in 2nd, taking a ticket, and then Gabe Klein's going to have a banger of a day and take one of those golden tickets home with him.
Let's go. Corinne coaches Gabe, so a little bit biased. We always have to caveat our predictions that we're rooting for everybody. We wouldn't be upset if anybody wins. This is just for fun. Obviously, again, go play fantasy. You can make your picks there at fantasy.freetrail.com. Play alongside us for a chance to win some cool swag from HOKA and your friends here at Freetrail. We can start winding down now, but
no. There's one prediction that has to be made, and maybe someone in the audience.
I was going to get to that, but we can do it now.
Okay, so for those of you who do not know, Dylan Bowman's not coming out of retirement by any means, but he is running the 50K tomorrow. And we've got this kind of fun inside game that we're playing. And how much is Hayden Hawks going to beat him by?
Hayden Hawks is officially on notice, okay? Got to talk trash to my American counterpart, one of the greats of all time. Hayden, if you beat me by any less than 45 minutes tomorrow, I win, okay?
That seems like the right age graded scale there.
To our viewers who watch us on YouTube, get in the comments, make a prediction about how much Hayden whoops my tail tomorrow. The closest in terms of the margin in our finishing times, we'll send some Freetrail swag to, okay? Leave your predictions in the comments.
I love it.
And we should say, I mean, it's not a foregone conclusion Hayden's going to win, but this is a competition between me and Hayden. But Daniel Olasans, Robbie Simpson taking the line of the 50K. We're not going to preview those races like we did the 100K, but the other distances here are going to be pretty awesome.
Yeah, and I think the 50K in particular on the women's side, for example, is just going to be names that are on the up and up, I think, in Australia and New Zealand in particular. And then, my pick, because I get to make one pick, is that Bianca is just going to have a banger of a day. She's a gal who I see more in that kind of 25 to 35K distance up to the marathon. So I think the 50K is kind of stepping up in the right direction for her. But I do anticipate that she'll rip it out there.
Awesome.
Keep your eyes peeled, Dylan, over your shoulder for Bianca.
She'll be ahead of me the whole time, that's for sure. Oh, so fun to do this. So a couple more things before we wind down. I wanted to give a shout out to Carl Sabe here. While we're in New Zealand, he's going for the Tarawera Trail right now.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, 2,000 kilometers, something like that. The north tip to the south tip of New Zealand, the king of long trail FKTs. He's going to finish in the next couple of days. Have you been following it all? Carl Sabe, for those who don't know, he's held the FKT on the PCT, the Appalachian Trail, the Via Alpina Trail in Europe. He is the GOAT of long trail FKTs. He's on the cusp of doing 28 days on the Tarawera Trail. The current record is 49 days. He's about to beat it by 3 weeks. Okay, you can follow along his Instagram. It's pretty cool long trail FKT stuff that's happening here in New Zealand right now and could finish during Tarawera weekend.
Peak summer.
Peak summer, mate, beach Daz, brew. Okay.
I think we're good.
Maybe final comment here. It's Valentine's Day in the USA. Do you guys celebrate Valentine's Day here in New Zealand? All right.
Well, I mean, we're in the future, so it's not Valentine's Day yet at home. So if you are a North American here and you've forgotten that tomorrow at home is Valentine's Day, you have like a 24-hour warning period.
Right. It's Valentine's Day here right now. It's Valentine's Day tomorrow for our American audience. So I just wanted to say a big thank you to Stephen and Harmony, our spouses here on stage, for allowing us to come do our amazing job here in New Zealand rather than be home, going out to fancy dinners and stuff.
Agreed.
Save that for when we get home. Closing comments from you, Corinne?
No, I'm excited to be running on the trails with all of you tomorrow. I'm so thrilled that we flew all this way and we do get to run the 50K. It's been a warm welcome. I need to go pick up my bib. You need to get registered.
Yep.
So we're going to go fix that real quick. But yeah, just really excited to share the trail with so many of you, and so thrilled to hopefully get to the 50K finish in time so that we can go cheer on the 100K and the 100 milers as well.
Awesome. All right, folks. Hope we did a good job. Appreciate everybody for sitting down and chatting with us. A big thank you to our man behind the scenes here, Mr. Ryan Thrower, the glue that holds the team together. Thank you to Ruth and Devin from the Ironman team for helping keep us all organized over the last couple of days. We appreciate you guys a lot, too. A big thank you to HOKA for supporting our coverage here this weekend, too. Go play fantasy. For Corinne Malcolm, I'm Debo. Good luck to everybody on the race course tomorrow. Peace out.